405C, forward, 2.5 tuck. Scores 7, 7, 6, 7, 7, 6 1/2, 6 1/2. Mike McKinney, San Diego Mesa, 401C, inward dive tuck. Scores 5 1/2, 6, 5, 6, 5 1/2, 5 1/2, 5. Jesse Vanderkolk, San Diego Mesa, 403C, inward, 1.5 tuck. Scores 5 1/2, 5 1/2, 6, 6 1/2, 5 1/2, 6, 6 1/2. Noah Luna Chafee, 403B, inward, 1.5 pike. Scores 8, 7 1/2, 8, 7, 6 1/2, 6 1/2, 7. Jose Espinoza, San Joaquin Delta, 101C, forward dive tuck. Scores 6, 6, 5, 5, 5 1/2 across. Jake Norman, College of Sequoias, 103B, forward, 1.5 pike. Scores 4, 4 1/2, 4 1/2, 3 1/2, 4, 3 1/2, 3. Brandon Guy, College of Marin, 101A, forward dive straight. Scores 'Yes, that was a straight position. Three and 1/2, 2 1/2, 1 1/2, 2, 2, 2, 3 1/2. Brendan Brown, Riverside, 103B, forward, 1.5 pike. Scores 5 1/2, 5 Nicole Gerard, Orange Coast, 403C, inward 1.5 tuck. Scores. Seven, 6, 6. 6.5, thank you. 6, 7, 6.5. Travis Russo, College San Mateo, 105B, forward 2.5 pike. Scores. 5.5, 5, 5, 5, 4.5, 4.5, 3.5, 3.5. Stetson Tate, Sierra, 103C, forward 1.5 tuck. Scores. Okay, 4.5, 4, 3.5, 3, 3.5, 4, 4. Andrew St. Germain, Clovis, 104C, forward, double somersault tuck. Scores. 4.5, 4.5, 4.5, 3.5, 4, 4, 3.5. Alexander McKee, Cuesta, 103C, forward 1.5 tuck. Scores. 5.5, 5, 4.5, 5, 4.5, 5, 5.5. Andre Harmillo, Mount Sac, 103B, forward 1.5 pike. Scores. 6, 5, 6, 6, 5.5, 4.5, 5. Dustin White, Merced, 103B, forward 1.5 pike. Scores. 5.5, 5.5, 5, 5.5, 6, 5, 5. Aaron Garcia, Riverside, 403C, inward 1.5 tuck. Scores. 4.5, 4.5. 4.5, 4.5, 5, 4.5, 4. Beginning round 2, Nikki, 201A, back dive straight.